Amen. Chazak u'baruch. Purim Katan Sameach. Today is Purim Katan. Tomorrow is going to be Shushan Purim Katan. So we also don't say Tachanun tomorrow, tonight. We don't say, right, tomorrow, no Tachanun. No Vidui tomorrow. Because it's Purim, Shushan Purim Katan. So it's going to be the same as today. Shachrit, Mincha, everything. Bezat Hashem. So just a couple of things that I was asked by some people, which is number one, if you let's say you found a thief, right? Somebody who stole something. He has some merchandise. He's trying to sell it, And if you know that he stole it, the question is, are you allowed to buy it from him? Or you should not buy from him. So it says the Shulchan Aruch in the Choshen Mishpat that you're not allowed to buy merchandise that was stolen by a thief. If you know that that merchandise was stolen, you're not allowed to buy from him. What's the reason why? Mesaya le'orei avera. You're helping people to do more sins, Because the more he sells, the more he's going to go back and steal more. This is the reason why.
How you know?
If you know, let's say he told you it's stolen merchandise. Or let's say you know by the signs, like he's selling it very cheap. Nobody sells the merchandise that cheap, You know that the guy's a thief. So...
Maybe he needed the money.
Yeah, you're right. If you know, only if you know. Only if you know. If you don't know, you don't know. Right? If you, yeah. Only if you know that it's stolen. Or there's also another thing, which is there's something called ganav mefusam. You know what that means? That he's famous for being a thief. So then we assume everything that he has is pretty much stolen. So according to one opinion. So you got to be careful about that too as well. There's also another opinion that says no, only if you really know that it's stolen. So the truth is, that if you don't know that it's stolen, you can buy it. As you said, right? There may be other reasons why it's cheap. So you're right, it's true. But there are some people. I remember when I was a kid, I had some friends over here in the community, and one of them had like a jewelry store. His father, was my friend. So there were some, like gypsies, that used to come to him and sell stolen merchandise. He knew that it was stolen. They used to every day they would come and bring new stolen merchandise. So he knew that this stuff was stolen. They told him it's stolen. They knew it was obvious. So they come every day. With fresh merchandise they steal. So don't buy things like this, right? That's the thing. Because mesele over avera. You're helping the sinners. But there is also some exceptions to this. So let's a little bit talk about that. Because the truth is, that sometimes what happens is that if you ever play around with a computer, right, that there's also stolen programs and stolen things like this, right? That people, they hijack them, they pirate them, pirate programs, all kinds of things like this, right? So the question is, are you allowed to buy a pirate program? This is the question, right? So there's a rule like this in Halacha, in Choshen Mishpat, Shulchan Aruch, that if you have Yu'ush and Shinui Rishut, or Shinui Makom, the thief that stole that has already acquired it. So let me explain to you in English what this means, right? What that means is like this, right? There was a thief who broke into a certain program, and he stole it, right? He hijacked it, right? Whatever, right? So he knows how to break into the program. So what happens is that he breaks it, then he copies it, and then sells it to people for a certain amount of money. Much cheaper than what you buy in the real market, right? Big discount you get, In Israel, they have this also there. A lot of issues like that going on there in Israel. So the question is, now the guy stole it. He broke into the program, and now he's going and selling it. So now you go to some place, right? You go to some guy or some dealer or some store, and they tell you, listen, we have a program. It's a pirate one. Pirate program. We want to sell to you, very cheap price, good price, like you won't get that in the regular market, but it's stolen, but it's already been passed on to many people, from one to the other 10 times, God knows, right? Until it came to the store, to this store. It's already been passed on many times. Are you allowed to buy that program? So the truth is, at that time, this was like 10 years ago or so, so I went to a Dayan over there in Yerushalayim, one of my friends was a Dayan, and I asked him this question, so this is exactly what he answered me. Whatever we see in the Shulchan Aruch, same thing, right? That once the program is broken into, and that means he stole it. So now also he shinui makom, shinui rishut. He's now selling it to others, right? And also it's changing. So there's yush. What does yush means? Yush means that the owner of that program gave up hope from retrieving it. He gave up hope. In other words, there's no way for him to retrieve that program. He lost it. That's it. It's lost. What is he going to do? Send the police, to look for the program? Which police is going to find you the program, right? Which FBI is going to find you? Which CIA is going to find you program? It's all over the place now. It's all over. They put it in the internet. They put it here. They put it there. You can't stop that. There's no way to stop it. So he gives up hope. That's it. He knows that he's gone. It's gone. So as we said, right, that in a case like that, because you have these two things, shinui rishut, it was already changed hands, and also it was yush, that he already gave up hope. He abandoned hope for retrieving that from other people. So therefore now it's mutar to buy. So what does that mean? That that the thief who took that program, or whatever he took, right, and he acquired it like that. He acquired it, and he sold it also, right, or he gave it to somebody else, whatever. Once he does that, once he sells it, that's it. It's already acquired by the buyer. So therefore, right, that's it. Now you're allowed to use that. You're allowed to buy that. So the question is, okay. So the question is, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about a Jewish program, or are we talking about a Goyish program? Right. So what difference does it make? Right. You're not allowed to steal from a Jew. You're not allowed to steal from a Goy. So what difference does it make if it's a Goy or a Jew? You know what it is? That there's a machloket in the Gemara, Gezel Goy, right? Stealing from a Goy. Is it Isur de Rabbanan? Is it from the rabbis? Or is it Isur de Raita? Is it from the Torah? So Gezel Jew, Gezel Yehudi, if you steal from a Goy, from a Jew, this is Isur de Raita, it's from the Torah. Stealing from a Jew. But stealing from a Goy is de Rabbanan, according to some opinions. What do I care? This is also Asur, this is also Asur. This is forbidden, this is forbidden. What difference does it make? The difference is that now that now that it was stolen and the Goy can't retrieve it, there's no way for him to retrieve that program. So therefore what happens is that now, even though it didn't change hands or whatever, it doesn't make any difference anymore. Why? Because since the Goy can't get it back, that's right, there's no way, right? So he doesn't even know about it. So what does that mean? When you buy that program from somebody, the Goy doesn't know that you're buying it from that person. He's not aware of it. He can't do nothing about it. So therefore, once the Goy gives up hope, from retrieving that item, you're allowed to buy it, or whatever, to keep that thing. That's the rule, right? With a Jew, it's a little bit more difficult. Why? Because since stealing from a Jew is deraita from the Torah, so therefore we have to be more machmir. You need certain conditions, right? As we said, right? Shinui rishut, to change hands, to be sold, and also to give up hope as well. The owner give up hope. So that's the idea, So therefore, right, depending on the situation, we have a different rule for each situation. Okay, so good to know, right? So therefore, a person can sometimes buy a pirate program, depending on how it came about, right? You should go to a rabbi and ask him about your particular situation. If he knows about these things, a little bit choshen mishpat, dayanut, he can answer, you can help you with these things, right? And give you
I have a question, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
In this case, the Jew in question, does that have to be a kosher Shomer Shabbat Jew?
I'm sorry, what was that again?
In this situation, the Jew in question has to be a kosher Shomer Shabbat.
Which Jew are we talking about? The thief or the...
No, you're saying that you can't steal from a Jew, right?
Ah.
So the Jew that's being stolen from, is he a Shomer Shabbat kosher Jew?
Oh, yeah, well, that's a good point. That's a good point, what you're saying. The truth is, right, that regarding this issue, the Chazal say, Jew who's mechalel Shabbat b'farhesia, he breaks Shabbat in public, he's considered to be like a goy. So therefore, that's what we look at him as. So we're talking about a religious Jew, because that's a real Jew, right? A Jew who's not keeping Shabbat, that's not a real Jew, right? That's a funky Jew. Funny Jew, right? Whatever you want to call it, right? So there's many are tinok shenishba, They don't know these things. They grew up in a family, they don't know. But still, the fact that they don't know doesn't change the fact that they're mechalel Shabbat, in a sense.
Right.
You know what I mean? What does that mean? They live the way they live. That's the way they live, and therefore, right, they're not where they should be. We can't blame them so much. That's the thing, right? Because why? Because they grew up in a secular family. Tinok Shenishba, There's a lot of writings about this in the Chazon Ish and other books, right, that wrote about this. Also, the Rambam writes about this as well. It really has it's different, right? Whether it's the Jew who became himself secular, he was religious, he grew up religious, he became secular. He's blamed for that. But a person who was his son already, who grew up in a secular family, we can't blame him for what he is. But nevertheless, he is what he is.
He's still Mechal Shabbat.
Exactly, he's still Mechal Shabbat. So therefore, when it comes to the rules of Mamonot, we treat him like a goy in many cases, right? For instance, like in the case of finding a lost object that he lost, so we look at him as a goy. You know what I mean? Also, right, regarding other things as well. There's a big issue regarding, let me tell you something really funny. I remember when I was here, about 30 years ago, before I went to Israel, I had a friend, who was, his name was Danielov, Bukharian guy. Good friend of mine, we grew up together a little bit, whatever. So, now he's in Israel, he's living in Israel. So, what happened was that he had this issue that he became religious, he became a Baal Tshuva, but his brother didn't become religious, So, what happened was that his brother came to him, and tells him, he says, listen, lend me money and I'll give you interest. He tells him like this, right? I'll pay you interest. So he was like, you're my brother, I'm going to charge you interest. You're a Jew. So he went to a certain rabbi, in Lakewood, whatever, so he asked this rabbi this question, So what did the rabbi tell him? You're allowed to lend him on interest. Can you imagine? Why is that? Because he's like a goy. You believe this? Unbelievable, right? So this is really shocking, because interest is a big prohibition. It's a very big sin, But nevertheless, when it comes to the situation, it's like that. So the truth is, afterwards, what I found was, Maran Rabbi he writes in Halichot Olam, one of his books, right? Series of books. There's 8 volumes there, Halichot Olam. In the first volume, he writes the same thing. That you're allowed to lend a secular Jew, Mechal Shabbat, B'Farhesia, you're allowed to lend them on interest. He writes the same thing. So the truth is, that afterwards, I asked the secretary, Rabbi Amir Crispo, who was the secretary of the rabbi. Very, very devoted secretary he was to the rabbi. The rabbi loved him, he loved the rabbi. Very close relationship. He was a good guy. So what happened was that I spoke to him about this one time. So you know what he answered? He answered that we asked him, does the rabbi still hold like that? You can lend on interest to a secular Jew? So he said, now the rabbi is a little bit queasy about that. He doesn't want you to do that anymore. He changed his mind a little bit on that. So the question is why? Why did he change his mind? So the truth is that before I heard that he changed his mind, I already thought that he should change his mind. You know why? Because in the Bet Yosef, it says over there like this, right? That when it comes to the Karaim, who were like a secular, heretical sect of Jews that came from a long time ago, hundreds of years ago, they've been around already. Karaim. They only believe in the Bible. They don't believe in the oral Torah. This is their heresy, right? They're heretics. You know what I mean? So Karaim are famous heretics. So it says the Bet Yosef that the Karaim, nowadays, we consider them to be Tinok Shenishba. What does that mean? They're innocent, Why is that? Because they don't know what they're doing. They grew up in a family like that. They grew up in heresy. They grew up in an atmosphere of heresy. That's the way they were educated, So what do you expect from them? So therefore, right, according to this, comes out that a person shouldn't lend, really, a secular Jew on interest. Why is that? Because he doesn't know what he's doing. He's innocent, But there's also the other side to the equation. You know what it is? As we said, even though he's innocent somewhat, but nevertheless there's the other side of the equation, which is that he lives life the way he does. As we said in the beginning, right? What does that mean, the way he does? He doesn't observe the Torah, doesn't observe mitzvot, doesn't live the life of a Jew. So what happens is that his whole lifestyle is like a lifestyle of a goy. You know what I mean? So that's the way he lives. So he's in that predicament, you know? He's down there in the basement, you know, in the gutter. He's in the gutter. You know what I mean? So what does that mean? What's the difference between a Jew and a goy, right? Or a secular Jew? What's the difference? The difference is that a Jew spends his money for mitzvot, you know, for things which are commanded by the Torah. So all his money is like kadosh, you know, in the sense that it's kodesh, you know, that he's doing everything for mitzvot, for Torah. That's his whole life. His whole life centers around that. Tzedakah, all kinds of things like this. So it's going to good places. The person who's religious. But a person who's secular, who's not religious, where is his money going? To all garbage, right? Going to here the garbage, this garbage, that garbage. All his money is going to the garbage. You know? So he lives a life where his money is like being spent on all kinds of tumah, all kinds of impurity. So therefore he's in the gutter, you know? So because he's in the gutter, that's why we treat him like a goy. You know, because his money doesn't have the same value as the money of a Jew, which is being spent from mitzvot. You know what I mean? So we don't really respect his money so much. We don't really respect his finances so much because of that reason. That's the thing, you know? So there's two different sides to look at it. So, right, that's the idea, you know? So therefore, the bottom line is like this, right? That when it comes to, Mechalel Shabbat b'Farhesia, a person who's breaking Shabbat in public, what we say is that he, if you find his lost item, right, he's like a goy. So what does that mean? You don't have to return it. If you want, you could. You know, you want to make a Kiddush Hashem or something like that, right? Otherwise, you don't have to return. That's the thing, right? So we treat him, in that sense, we treat him like a goy. And also in many other ways. So the rule is, right, that he's like a goy in many other ways. By the way, there's also a question, I want to finish with this, I don't want to keep you too long. There's also a question about this regarding if a Jew like this, you know, who's Mechalel Shabbat b'Farhesia, or let's say it's even worse, right? He's Mumar l'Avodah Zarah. He does Avodah Zarah. He became a Christian, you know, whatever, right? Became a priest, I don't know, God knows what. Whatever. So the question is, if he does Kiddushin, if he marries a Jewish woman, is it considered to be marriage or not? Or is he like a goy? We said, like, he's like a goy. So if he marries a Jewish woman, is he married? So the answer is, says the Shulchan Aruch, he's considered to be married. So what does that mean? When it comes to ritual law, you know, Isurim, you know, which marriage law is also part of that, so there we treat him like a Jew. When it comes to monetary law, financial law, we treat him like a goy. This is the separation between this and that, you know? But there are also others who say something interesting, you know? They say that even though when it comes to marriage, you know, we treat him like a Jew, meaning what? That his marriage is considered to be a marriage. Nevertheless, they say it's only the Rabbanan, it's only from the rabbis. From the Torah, even that is not valid. Can you imagine? So it's an interesting concept there. So bottom line is that the secular Jew is considered to be like a goy in most regards, right? Except certain exceptions, like we said, as with marriage. So what does that mean? If a secular Jew, right, or a Jew who became an apostate, you know, Avodah Zarah, he went to church, became a priest. If he marries a Jewish woman, she needs a get from him to divorce. You know, just can't say, oh, you know, he's a goy. You know, you can't say that. That's what the rabbi said. That's how they pass it. Baruch Adonai Leolam, Amen ve'Amen. Rabbi Hananiah ben Ikash Omer, Nitzach Kadosh Baruch Hu Zechor Yisrael, לפיכך ירבה להם תורה ומצוות, שנים אדוני חפש, למען צדקו יגדיל תורה וידיר.